Welcome to Building Texas with Justin McKenzie and Summer Babarek. Sponsored by the Boerne-Kendall County Economic Development Corporation and Das GreenHaus. And now, here's your host, Justin McKenzie.
Welcome to Building Texas, where we sit down with the most interesting people who are making an impact locally and statewide. And I'm thrilled to have a guest here in studio with us today from the Austin area. We're going to get to know her in a little bit. And then Amy Story is back in studio with us. We're going to be talking a lot about economic development, what that looks like in Kendall County. And then I think we're going to get a good statewide perspective too when it comes to entrepreneurial work, venture, and everything related to starting a business in the state of Texas. Boerne is growing, so is Texas. What does that mean to you? And how do you get involved? How do you play a role in growing your local area? Whether that's you want it to grow in a different way or you want it to stay the same, we've got to find a way to get involved and be a part of that community. You're listening to Building Texas, 103.9 FM Boerne Radio. And CS, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to ask you for a quick introduction. Let us know who you are, and then we'll ask Amy the same.
Thanks, Justin. Wonderful to be here in Boerne, Texas. I'm CS Freeland, and I'm a founder of the Texas Venture Alliance. We're headquartered in Austin, so I drove up this morning, but I love being out here, and thanks for having me.
And Amy Story back in the office. I think people know you, but let's hear it again.
I'm back. Don't change the channel. I'm Amy Story, and I'm president and CEO of the Boerne-Kendall County Economic Development Corporation.
Well, CS, thanks for coming down and visiting Boerne today. And you really came down to help us coordinate for an event that we have planned for October 6th, and it's the Texas Venture Crawl. Can you tell us a little bit about the event and what is the Texas Venture Crawl?
Yeah, so the Texas Venture Crawl is a very big statewide initiative that the Texas Venture Alliance is promoting and serves a purpose to help connect the statewide, what we call the greater venture ecosystem of startup support. So Texas is a really big state, obviously. So many incredible stories of entrepreneurship, startup development, investing, and thought it was really important that we do something really big together. So that's what Texas Venture Crawl is. It's October 6th, 5 to 8 p.m., and I'm realizing I got to be a little bit more specific and obvious in saying that it's a simultaneous event actually happening now in 12 different cities. And it's been incredible to meet co-working space owners and operators, the economic development organizations, the chambers, startups, and everyone who are really big contributors of the ecosystem in each region across the state. So if you're interested in that community, definitely check out each of these events. It's everyone's having their own Texas Venture Crawl. There's no, Brownsville or Austin Venture Crawl anymore. It's just everyone's having a statewide Texas Venture Crawl. So yeah, it'll be fun too. It's Texas. We'll have fun with it.
Can we bring it back just a little bit? Can you explain what the Texas Venture Alliance does?
Yeah, it's in the biggest way, it's bringing the community together it's the greater venture ecosystem of startup support. So we are we offer a statewide membership, and it's really focused on amplifying the venture community and advocating at the Texas State Capitol, also creating an ecosystem of support there as well.
When you say advocating, you mean lobbying?
Yes.
Okay. And I bring that up because there was a lot of legislation that went through the process, but maybe didn't pass in the last session. And maybe you can give us some insight in what does that look like from a venture standpoint? I don't know that I would immediately recognize legislative changes for fundraising and venture work.
Yeah, and that's something that we felt that was the opportunity. So even taking a step back from that, I ran an Austin kind of startup investors organization. So in a hyper-local capacity, good to get the community together. We saw the venture community there more than quadruple. It was like maybe 10 VCs considered Austin as the headquarters, and now it's more like 60 or 70. We'll see how many actually stick around. Obviously our industry's taking a big hit, but I jumped off last year to go do a statewide venture capital association, basically the Texas Venture Alliance. And it was important to add a membership across the state, but also be an advocate and really helping to start new legislative efforts at the Texas State Capitol. And also I live a couple blocks away from the Capitol building, so it just kind of made a lot of sense to me. I was like, actually, it'd be really dumb if we didn't at least try. So to your point about, we had a couple different venture bills that we were helping to advocate for. And one big one that probably moved the most progress throughout both chambers was a venture bill related to incentivizing investors to invest in rural populations. So, Texas has got a lot of them. And that would be companies maybe in AgTech or aviation. Clean energy was really going to be another big important investment, not only just here in Texas, but we see this in the federal landscape as well. But yeah, it was a very unusual, unprecedented session. I think we saw around 8,000 bills, more than 8,000 bills get submitted, and only about 1,300 saw any resolve. And I think it's important to note that while there were, I would say that the reps, the senators, everyone felt pretty positively for these different venture bill efforts. I mean, just the key priorities for the governor and just the state in general, like infrastructure issue, teachers' pay, property tax abatement, those are the big ticket items. Sure. Yeah, ours ended up being, and I say ours, the bills that we were helping to support, ours ended up being kind of just nice to have. Even just the priorities for Texas, which is a whole nother conversation. But, it's a start. And there were efforts back when Rick Perry was the governor. It would be great to have something, really anything at this point, to have what I call recognition at the Texas State Capitol for our industry, which is startups and investors. So we've watched 34 other states lead in some kind of recognition of support for startups. And this is a new type of business model. That's the startup concept, is this new mindset. This is our state's problem solvers. So we could help them, the state, solve some of these infrastructure issues, for example. And, this is the type of jobs that we would like to see more of, and these success stories that we want to see in the state.
You're listening to Building Texas on Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. And we're here with CS from Austin, who's the Texas Venture Alliance founder, or one of the founders of Texas Venture Alliance, and is really focused on how do we recognize those problem solvers, those entrepreneurs. And I love to hear you talk about in a rural setting, because Kendall County is a rural setting. We're still a rural county. But what I hear you talking about is a problem that I see often in our community. As I look at our community, we know Texas is out advertising and attracting business and people to the state. Locally, we have a citizenship that says we don't really want to change it. We're growing so fast and we're a highly desirable area. We recognize and appreciate that. So people want to move here. And for us, it's a balance of how do we retain the great businesses and talent that we have and attract the right business for our county, our region, our area. So I love what you're talking about, then, that the state needs to recognize that those different forces working against each other, the state pushing has an impact at a local. And then things like Das GreenHaus, the Angel Network, the work the EDC is doing is really having to mitigate that conversation. And how do we activate, if there was a legislative decision, how do we activate that locally? How are we prepared? And that's where, Amy, I'm really proud of the work we're doing to be prepared for that.
Well, it's interesting what you're talking about at a state level, because it's very parallel to what we're seeing at our local level. And everybody says, we appreciate startups, we like them, we like entrepreneurs, we want that. But what are we really doing to attract and support them? And so you're talking about, state level legislative support, and locally for us, we looked at, we can say we want entrepreneurs, but what are we doing to give them a reason to choose Kendall County? So that's where the Angel Network came from. That's where Das GreenHaus came from. And really, we're trying to build a toolbox of reasons for entrepreneurs to come here. So it sounds very similar.
Well, and I appreciate also, you've introduced us to other communities that were doing what we did. And you weren't aware of the work we were doing, but now we're all working together in a different way. So can you talk about maybe some of those stories where you've seen collaboration? What do you see working?
Yeah, well, I love that. I guess we've had some level of a success story here as well between Boerne and Kerrville. We helped connect Capital Factory to Brownsville. I think in general, we really ought to be talking, I'm from Austin. I've been living in downtown Austin for 10, almost 15 years in Austin in general. We always talk about the Texas Triangle or the Texas parallelogram, like San Antonio, I guess. But really,
changing the shape.
But now, post-pandemic, we live in a super distributed, decentralized world, and you can move outside of the big cities and still be very successful. Maybe you want a change of work-life balance, and there's things that we can do digitally that really help tell the stories from every region, not just the triangle or the parallelogram. And it's been a super incredible experience. I've kind of been guinea pigging myself out, going all over the state. At the end of this month, it'll be 20 cities in Texas. And I kind of go and take pictures. I was over at GreenHaus and brand new co-working. And we're talking about it, kind of the hardware. And y'all have got the software situation, so the building and then the software to help entrepreneurs. But yeah, just meeting the individuals, the organizations of each region, blogging about it. We call it the Texas Venture Road Trip. And so while I'm by myself for the most part in these different cities, really would be great to have almost like a delegation of anyone who is interested to come to Boerne or El Paso or San Marcos or Fort Worth. And it's something that we have on a blog. We've got a newsletter that helps tell those stories in a more live way, straight to your inbox or on LinkedIn. So it's the Texas Venture newsletter. But yeah, it's been pretty easy to just come say hello and take pictures and amplify those stories, so it's easy for others to see.
Well, in all of these towns, I see an energy building, and there's someone in any town that sees a need to retain talent. They want their kids to stay. They want their grandkids to be raised in rural Texas. And now with companies like GBTC and fiber providers that are running fiber to the home, you can really work from rural Texas anywhere in the world. And that's where Boerne's benefit. Kendall County.
Absolutely.
Kendall County during the pandemic saw tremendous movement from Houston, San Antonio, other large city centers moving here for a lifestyle, a high quality of life. And because of our great fiber connectivity through GBTC and others, we're able to meet that need. And that's been an economic boom for us.
It was interesting to see post-pandemic people sitting back and evaluating where they're living and working. And with that ability to work remotely, when you kind of looked historically at site selection criteria, where did quality of life fall? And it was in there, but it trended a little bit lower. Post-pandemic, we're seeing a lot of people making decisions because they want a certain work-life balance, or they have the ability to work remotely. So we saw tremendous project activity from people who were looking to move somewhere else.
Wow, this is so crazy because literally last night, so I was getting back in from Houston. I went to go visit the Houston Ion, where they'll also have a Texas Venture Crawl. Greentown Labs is like clean energy focused. SESH, which is LGBTQ and women co-working space. Last night, my neighbor across the hallway from me, I live in a downtown high rise, it's like 42, like I feel like a city slicker sometimes. I was like, are you moving out? Like, what's going on? There's like all these packages and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'm actually, what did he say he's moving to? Somewhere outside of San Antonio. And I was like, oh, interesting. He's like, it was getting really expensive. He had a corner unit, and I was like, oh, I'm actually heading out to Boerne in the morning. He's like, oh, yeah, I know Boerne.
That's funny.
You're listening to Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. My name's Justin McKenzie, and this is Building Texas. I'm thrilled to have C.S. Freeland and Amy Story in the room with us today. After the break, we're going to come back and talk more about the economic summit that we have coming on October 24th and ways that we can get involved and get you out and see what's happening, not only in Kendall County, but I love C.S. you sharing what's happening statewide.
Did you know we've been playing football in Boerne for 99 years continuously? And for 72 of those years, we've been supporting the fine arts in our public schools with Boerne Turkey Dinner. If you love tradition, if you love Boerne, and if you love turkey, November 12th, BoerneTurkeyDinner.com. Come support the fine arts in our community.
Well, welcome back to Building Texas on Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. I'm thrilled to be in studio with C.S. Freeland from the Texas Venture Alliance and Amy Story from the Boerne-Kendall County Economic Development Corporation. And I want to close out our conversation about the venture crawl to really say, what is it? Ideally, you said 12 cities across Texas. They're all celebrating the entrepreneurial ecosystems that we're building. And for me, that was affirming because we've been building in Kendall County for about 4 years now, and we hadn't looked around to see who else is there. So who else is there? I mean, one of your events is at Cowboy Stadium.
Yes. A little different than ours.
A little bit different than DOS GreenHaus.
Yeah, for a Texas-sized networking event, I felt like a pretty good headquarters would be the Cowboy Stadium. So not too bad up in Dallas. But yeah, and I would, to talk about the founding story of the Venture Crawl, I actually had an Austin Venture Crawl last year, and it was 5 different locations. We had a bunch of VCs that bought out the bars. Silverton was the first VC involved, and they actually have an office space downtown. And we made it easy for startups to see who all's here, who's investing in what. And even if an investor is not going to cut a check right then and there, there's a way to be helpful, and it could be offering some kind of connections or some sort of advice. And so I even kind of joke about it that I think Canadians are going to take over the Texas Venture Crawl. So, it's mostly Texas VCs and incubators, accelerators, and we're promoting the startup, the co-working spaces. Some of that's universities, EDCs, and chambers have some kind of, they're starting funds as well. They're technically investors. Round Rock's got a $500,000 fund. There's a lot of $500,000 here and there. Brownsville EDC, McKenzie, and all those folks. But getting everyone together, and I say that, but like across the state, you could just kind of like see on one big page where people are going to be. And so highlighting Kerrville and Boerne as well, there might be a lot of angel investor, like the angel investor to startup ratio. Like if you knew the Houston venture scene very well, come on out to Hill Country, meet the folks, who make some new connections. And while you're there, by the way, get some great wine too. So there's like a little bit of tourism element as well, which is what I think, partnering with chambers and EDCs has been really incredible. But it's really just highlighting the startup ecosystem of support. We've had startup crawls before, in different parts of Texas. But I was like, wait, we should make the VCs pay for it. and make it easy for founders to see this ecosystem of startup support.
Well, we'd invite any founder to come join us on October 6th. I know we'll have a great turnout for our event at DOS GreenHaus, and then we're excited to send some teams to Kerrville and to San Antonio to really highlight that we're not alone in this. And I want our listener to understand that this that we've been doing in Kendall County has been new to Kendall County, but it is not unique to Kendall County. And when we talk about competing on the economic development landscape across Texas and across the country, Amy, I think you've said it, having a tool and having a place to put a founder or a VC or an investor and connect them really ties them into the community, gets them involved.
Absolutely. I mean, the data shows that they're loyal to the communities where they're working and connecting and starting their businesses. So there's a network out there, and we're just tapping into it. So we're excited to see people coming out for this. It's just another way to show that there's a lot of great things happening in Kendall County.
I like what you're saying about the site selection. It's kind of like site selecting for startups too. And we want to get really thematic with the Texas Venture Crawl. So if y'all have a lot of space out here, then maybe that's good for certain types of companies that need the space, like aviation. We're talking about the charcoal, local. Yeah, so highlighting those stories, again, making it easy for founders to see who else here, and even not just in terms of VCs and investors, but regions even. Texas has these incredible rivers that serve as boundaries of this great, huge state. And, to only specifically talk about Houston, like, the Texas Triangle is so unfortunate to me. So even if we don't see a lot of startup activity happening, let's say in El Paso, for example, or Midland, we could help start that. We can just have these conversations where every city is having their own Texas venture crawl. It's not the Midland venture crawl. And even just saying these words too, like startups. And then it's like, well, venture capital. Like, what is venture? Just starting that conversation is good.
If you're a founder looking for a new home, I'd welcome you to look at the Texas Hill Country region because there is an excitement about it. And you're right. If you're outside the triangle, you don't really see where is the local capital, the hyper local investment, where is the hyper local mentorship, where are the people that are going to support you. And that's why we've built what we've built in our ecosystem to really help enable that and attract the founders that are already here into the conversation and make them part of it.
It's exciting to see, the people that are here as these opportunities become available. It's exciting to see people coming out that are already in our community we just didn't know. So every time we're surprised.
So we've talked a lot about the engagement of the EDC and chambers and those organizations that are really attracting and helping and support business. I love that the incubators and co-workers are now into that same realm. And part of that is how we talk about economic development. Amy, you and I on the radio have had conversations about the 3 legs of economic development. One of them is entrepreneurial. You're going to have an opportunity to highlight all of your work in Kendall County with a economic summit that's coming up through the San Antonio Business Journal on October 24th. How do we tie these two things together? And are we really attracting the same people? Where do you see this going?
Thanks for bringing this up. This is something that we're very excited about. It's the first time we are ever going to host an event like this. We've worked with the San Antonio Business Journal to put this on. It's going to be October 24th, and the purpose of it is really to highlight what we're doing here as a community. It's a Kendall County Economic Summit, but it's to bring folks from the region, from Austin, from San Antonio, from our community at large to come out and see, learn more about the businesses that are here, learn what we're doing to plan for future growth, learn what we're doing to support our entrepreneurial ecosystem, and hear from those founders and people that are making waves in our community. So it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to spotlight Kendall County, and we're very excited. We've been told that any stories on Boerne or Kendall County seem to receive a lot of engagement from the Business Journal, so we thought, why not have this half-day event and really go dig a little deeper and bring these leaders in our community out. We're excited.
So it's a great opportunity to have the two events so close together in my mind, because you can get a taste of Boerne on the venture crawl. You can see it. I think we're getting, and I appreciate that we're getting publicized alongside the Texas Triangle with, we are a source of capital. We're a place where we have tools and resources and a quality of life that it might be great for your startup. But Amy, to your point, I want to highlight retention. I want to highlight how we slow down the brain drain that is happening here, the exportation of talent, because that's a huge impact economically to our region.
It is, and we're not unique in that. I mean, rural communities in general struggle with having opportunities to bring those kids and young adults back to the community. So really it comes down to what opportunities are being created. You want to give them a viable career opportunity. And so it's not easy to do, but you chip away at it bit by bit. And that is something that we all acknowledge. We've got tremendous kids with great potential, great talent that go out, get educated other places, in college, trade schools, whatever the case may be. How do we bring them back here? And it's having those opportunities that they can have a strong quality of life and come back to the community where they were raised.
I was talking to someone with the school district yesterday, and there's 3 MIT students that are on sabbatical from Boerne High School, Boerne ISD. They went to MIT, they founded companies, and now they're funded companies. One of them's in Austin and being highly celebrated right now. But he graduated from Boerne High School 2 years ago. We knew him. He pitched at the Angel Network through the Incubator EDU program. And to me, that's a huge success where he was prepared. They were all prepared in high school to go out and be very successful, to the point, 1, they were at MIT. 2, they're at MIT and they're taking a break because they've got funding and ideas and companies to build already. And so to me, how do we get that person, when they're ready, to come back to Boerne and keep building here and to build their family legacy here? Mm-hmm. A lot of that has to do with land ownership and everything else, but we really want to retain.
This is an issue all across Texas as well. I was in Corpus Christi a couple of days ago for the South Texas Economic Development Conference. And, I met with the Laredo EDC there. He had an interesting stat where he said 30% of Laredo's population is under the age of 30. And I was like, whoa, that's going to be very interesting. You talk about brain drain.
Absolutely.
The younger generations, to put it lightly, maybe they won't find great jobs there. If there's not some kind of technology or tech-enabled or some kind of community, of course they will leave. So that's 30% of their population right now is currently that young.
Which is what IC Squared told us, and why we started the ecosystem build was you have to build your own. You have to build a future for your youth that gives them careers and pathways forward. Otherwise, they're going to find it elsewhere. It's been a pleasure to visit with both of you today. I want to highlight October 6th, the Venture Crawl. It'll be at Das GreenHaus here locally across 20 other states. And then October 24th, we have the Economic Summit. We'll look forward to having you there. And we're really looking for people from Kendall County to come out. But what would be really exciting is to see Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston coming in and saying, what's Kendall County doing? And how can we all be a part of it? So thank you for joining us on Building Texas, Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. CS, it's a pleasure to have you in town. Thank you for visiting. Amy, always a pleasure.
Thank you. This is Amy Story with the Boerne-Kendall County Economic Development Corporation. Join us on Tuesday, October 24th for Kendall County's first Economic Summit at the Bevy Hotel for this half-day event to learn more about the businesses and opportunities here in Kendall County. This event is being brought to you by the San Antonio Business Journal and the Boerne-Kendall County Economic Development Corporation. Sponsorships are still available, and individual tickets can be purchased through the San Antonio Business Journal or online at the BKC EDC website. That's www.bkcedc.com. You don't want to miss this opportunity to hear from local business leaders as well as representatives from the City of Boerne and Kendall County. Panel discussions include infrastructure planning, and hear from the people and entities involved in the creation of our entrepreneurial ecosystem. Get your tickets before the event sells out. After the Economic Summit, Das GreenHaus, Boerne's first business incubator, will host an open house. So come out and see the community's place to support and grow entrepreneurs, innovators, founders, and startups right here in Kendall County. That's www.bkcedc.com.
Radio 103.9 FM. Now let's head over to the Patrick Heath Public Library with Miss Constance for Children's Story Time. As the Patrick Heath Library is open today from 10 to 4, this is Boerne Radio.